just macho man. DJs in the club, slam the jam. I come in with the heat that's just like hot. When they drop this beat, it's going up the spot.
Swallow your pride, don't let your lip react. You don't wanna see my hand where my hip be at. With Artemis, from the start of this, running the game. James West, taming the West, so remember the name. Now who you gonna call? Now who you gonna call? If you ever been with either one of us, break it out before we get bum rush.
Learn your best to bring the water to your eyes. Thinking it might stop, but I'm whipping your behind. The wild, wild west, it always wins. The wild, wild west, the wild, wild west, it always wins. The wild, wild west, come back on smoke, and I want your days.
Try to bring down me, the champion. When y'all clash, goes and then get it done. Understand me, son. I'm the slickest they is. I'm the quickest they is. Can I say I'm the slickest they is?
Music, the food of the soul. Welcome everyone to the Tori Seth Show. So yesterday I had some unexpected things, internet chaos that kind of spilled over to this morning, but there was nothing that was going to stop me from actually talking about this confusion that we have in J6. But rather than me spill the beans that I have been for years, I would like to introduce you to someone that we, the people, can actually aid and get to the bottom of this ourselves. As President Trump has said many times, there are a lot of things that we, the people, have to fix that he can't, right? He can't. He said, you have to deal with the elections. You have to fix all of the issues because he is just one man standing in the gap. And there's a lot of people that are standing in the gap for many, not only their loved ones, but people they don't know, people they do know. And that's really important that we remember that. Now, in order for me to introduce my guest today, and this is why this show was very important to me, I did want to do it yesterday, but I knew that I could not. Therefore, I did it today because, as I knew, everyone would be coming out and opining. I think there are so many of us right now frustrated to see all these people locked behind bars without any assistance. It's like they have no assistance. And many will say, well, they have lawyers, they have this. Well, if they had all of that, they wouldn't be where they are. We all know from just the elections and the mask mandates and the COVID mandates, just how difficult it is to find good help or lawyers that will like to help or people that are open to going outside the narrative for defense. And that's key here. And so, we may have found, not just one, but many as a vessel as such. And I'd like to showcase someone that took their oath, that understood their oath. And to do that, allow me first to show you some of these viral TikToks that have gone around that I think are imperative to be showcased again. And I've done this before, so again, to make sure that we understand where we're entering now. Please enjoy.
My husband has been behind bars 633 days today. The FBI came and raided our house. He was 7 years law enforcement when they came in on January 6th. The same videos that the government used to charge him with exonerate him if they would only turn on the audio and if they would not tailor it in front of the judge. He was trying to save Roseanne Boylan's life, but unfortunately passed away, was murdered by Metro PD officer Lila Morris. He also was helping an officer who was down. And every time he went to pick up that officer, they charged him with assault with a deadly weapon. So he has 4 felony charges on him, 3 misdemeanors. He's facing 68 years in
Despite audio and video evidence showing former Tennessee Sheriff's Deputy Ronald Colton McAbee did not assault a police officer on the Capitol steps of January 6th, as alleged by prosecutors. If you listen to the audio as you watch the video, you find out he was helping a Capitol policeman who was down.
Let go of your hood. I know, help you. Let go of your hood. I know, help you.
I need questions! Thank you! Fuck you, asshole! Fuck you! Fuck you!
And yet this judge has the audacity to say we're not listening to the audio so he could hear that evidence. Why wouldn't you listen to the evidence?
Make sure that this will never happen again, because I promise you, if they're going to come after somebody like my husband, they're going to come after you. It's only a matter of time.
Now, as we know, TikTok's not very friendly in showcasing, but I had to. I just wanted to say you need to understand that in Williamson County, Franklin, Tennessee, this deputy that took an oath found himself, in a twist of fate, like convicted of 7 counts of assault that never happened. Each charge links his attempts to lift, right? You know what's bad? That back home, not a soul in the sheriff's office, for me, as I see, stood up for him. And that's a silence that spoke volumes to me. And during the trial, a critical piece of evidence, the actual video that was presented, was with a catch. The audio was muted, and the prosecutor's voice took over, weaving a narrative that many would say distorts the truth. But we have seen this before. We have seen this before. His arrest in August of 2021 was just the beginning. And since then, he's been subject to what's known as diesel therapy in prison. And that's a tactic of constant transfers to disorient. This is what we do to disorient whoever we have captured, isolating them, making it nearly impossible also for people to see him, including his wife. And this is what? A story of justice and injustice. And it's entangled in the complexities of law and the lives it touches. And I think it's important that we showcase this and understand it, because it's one thing when we talk about it and we're distanced. And I feel that there has been a growing campaign to minimize exactly what's happening, because people have started to become desensitized to the fact that these are people, fellow Americans that have done nothing wrong, and some may have, but in many cases, nothing wrong, and are being held and treated as if they were atrocious enemies of our nation. And for me, that speaks volumes. And for me, it's heartbreaking. So before I introduce my guest, I would like to play an additional video just to showcase who, what, when, where.
The FBI came and raided our house. He was 7 years law enforcement when they came in on January 6th. The same videos that the government used to charge him with exonerate him if they would only turn on the audio and if they would not tailor it in front of the judge. He was trying to save Roseanne Boylan's life, who unfortunately passed away, was murdered by Metro PD officer Lila Morris. He also was helping an officer who was down. And every time he went to pick up that officer, they charged him with assault with a deadly weapon. So he has 4 felony charges on him, 3 misdemeanors. He's facing 68 years in prison. But on August 17th, 2021, I received a call from the FBI saying that they had apprehended my husband and they were going to raid our house. They were at our house for 5 hours. They took 14 items, including our flag on our front porch. It was 597 days before I saw him behind glass for 30 minutes talking on a telephone. He did nothing wrong on January 6th, but he is being persecuted and prosecuted like he went out and he watched a cop murder somebody, but they are treating him like he was the one that murdered Roseanne Boyland. You know, he's been at 7 different facilities. It's called diesel therapy if you look it up. It's a form of punishment in the U.S. He's been held in 24/7 solitary confinement, which is illegal. For 7 days, he wasn't allowed to shower or make a phone call. His family had no idea where he was. He's now held in 23-1, and they are in 4x4 cells. You can walk 2 steps, and then you have to walk back. They have nothing but a bed, a 1-inch mattress. He hasn't had a pillow in 633 days. He's lost 60 pounds. All at one point he had was a Bible and a jail handbook. We asked ourselves, this is going on in DC. On September 5th, 2022, I found out from a call from a gentleman, another man inside the facility, that my husband was assaulted. He wasn't wearing a COVID mask while taking oral medication, and a lieutenant sprayed an entire can of OC spray in his eyes, 1 inch from his face. Mind you, he was taking oral medication, and they have lived in this facility. At this point, he had been there for over a year in what we would consider a living room, not allowed to leave. They didn't have visitation, they didn't have haircuts, they didn't have religious services, so they literally lived in this living room. But he got in trouble for not wearing a COVID mask while taking oral medication. She walked up to him, said that he had assaulted her and sprayed him with OC spray, which is a higher form of bear mace. The same thing that they are charging January 6th defendants with is what he got assaulted with. They threw him on the ground, handcuffed him, and again sprayed him with another can of OC spray, saying that he was not complying. The pod then got in an uproar and started yelling at this lieutenant, and they tried to charge him with inciting a riot. They left him in a cell for 13 hours without a shower while this reactivated on his skin. They finally gave him a shower, and he said, "Sarah, the only way I can explain it to you is you have a sunburn and you hop into a hot tub." That's how it felt when they were trying to treat this. He got their way of taking care of this. He was kicked out of the facility and went to 3 different facilities. That lieutenant is now gone, and there is legal action against these the U.S. Marshals and the facility itself. But this is a never-ending thing for us. People ask me how I get through this, and I say 1 day at a time, because that's how often things can change. I got a call at 5 a.m. one morning because it was from another inmate at another facility telling me that he was being moved again. So my whole day I had no idea. I just had to start praying and ask God to protect him, because he's not only protective custody because he's a J6er, he's also protective custody because he's a cop. And anybody that knows law enforcement, when you are on the other side of the wall, you are a target. Wow. So, this is how our life has looked for the last 633 days. He will be behind bars 26 months before he steps in front of a judge for a jury trial. At that point, he is one of 4, as of right now, could get bigger. He's one of 4 that will be tried in front of the same jury in DC, because they are not allowed to change a venue. Again, DC is not a jury of his peers. There's a 97% conviction rate right now. He is facing 68 years of his life for standing up for somebody, trying to save a woman's life on January 6th, and helping an officer. Again, all of this is on video. 10 minutes of his life, and the government has acknowledged he never hurt anybody that day, yet he is still being persecuted. In September, after my husband was assaulted, I decided I can't stay quiet anymore because we have to be a voice for the voiceless. And so we created the Real J6 with another gentleman, Shane Jenkins, who is also inside, just got found guilty on 10 charges, facing 10 to 15 years in prison. And we knew that our fight was far from over. We have to make sure that this will never happen again, because I promise you, if they're gonna come after somebody like my husband, they're gonna come after you. It's only a matter of time.
The tapes need to be released, right? They're 41,000 hours.
Yes.
Why is Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer, and Nancy Pelosi not wanting the tapes to be released? You agree with what I just said?
Because they're involved.
They're in on it.
When in history have the accused demanded that every piece of evidence get laid out in the public?
Well, without further ado, Sarah, welcome to the Tori Says Show. I introduced your husband's story from the perspective of social media, but what I want you to do is literally take the floor yourself. I need not comment. I'd like for you to speak to the people and tell them your part. I would like to step back and give you the floor, because no matter how many times someone reiterates your story, your husband's story, and the real statements you made, that if they came after him, an outstanding citizen and contributed to his community, a man that took his oath, a man that did good, just imagine what's coming for other people. So thank you for coming on today. I really appreciate your time and your husband's service and the service that you're performing, not only on behalf of your husband, but many, many others that are voiceless in this atrocious demonstration of what's to come when the people don't have elected officials in office. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on. Our story is quite unique, but unfortunately it's not in this January 6th community. So I appreciate you having me on and giving us a platform to tell not only our story, but to be a voice for the voiceless, because that's what we have to do here. You know, my husband and I, we were just your average American citizens, white picket fence family, grew up in a beautiful home in East Tennessee, had wonderful parents. My husband came into my life when we were in middle school. So high school sweethearts at its finest. And he was a football player, an all-star American, went off to college to play college ball. And when he got out of college, he said he wanted to go support his community again and give back. So he became a law enforcement officer. He was a law enforcement officer for 7 years. And just as many people have now said, he is the one who upheld his oath of office that day on January 6th, even though he wasn't on duty. So on January 6th, a friend previously had invited him to go, and he wanted to go hear President Trump speak. He had never been to a rally before, and he really thought this was going to be the last time, based on, you know, he followed politics, and he was afraid this was going to be the last time that he had heard him speak. And so he went not knowing what was going to happen that day, found himself at the Lower West Terrace Tunnel, where a lot of the violence had happened. And in that time, he had seen an officer that was down. He, as you saw in the videos, he had poked his head around and said, "You have a man down." And they didn't do anything about that. And so he had stepped in, and this officer was lying on the ground in distress, looked like a starfish. So he had put his foot in between his legs so the protesters couldn't pull him down the stairs. And as he's going to pick up this officer, he sees Lila Morris, Metropolitan Police Officer, beating Roseanne Boylan, an unconscious and unarmed woman lying on the ground. And so he's trying to save this officer, but he's also trying to save this woman's life. And so he's yelling, "Stop, quit." Another officer comes up to him and attacks him. He hits him with a baton across the ribs and the chest, and he merely pushes him off in an open form fashion of his hands, pushes him off to create space, what they're taught to do. And he says, "I'm helping, I'm one of you." goes to pick up this officer, and unfortunately, the protesters successfully pulled him down the stairs. And so they slid down the stairs together, and he was over top of him for about 20 seconds, protecting him. As you heard in the video, he's yelling, "No, quit, stop." And the officer says, "Get off me, man." He said, "I'm helping you." And he said, I know, help me up." And so he rolls him over, helps him back up to the line of duty, the line of officers up there so he can get assistance. While my husband then goes, finds Roseanne Boylan and takes her back to the line of duty, starts to give her chest compressions, and they drag her away like she's a dead animal. And then he is just standing there. You can tell he's coming off this adrenaline high. They are macing him with pepper spray, and he is yelling, "Stop spraying me. I'm not hurting anybody." And then a third officer watched this entire thing go down and said thank you twice to him. And then when the crowd surges because they are so upset about what they just witnessed, what they witnessed the cops doing, they surge towards him, and the officer puts his arm around him and says, "I got you, man." And then the officer gets another civilian to get him medical help for the treatment that he needed. His shoulder was broken prior to that. And so he needed some medical treatment. And so a civilian takes him away. So like I said in the video, 10 minutes of his life, he was looking at 68 years. Since that video, today it is 856 days of him being behind bars. It was a year and a half before I was able to lay eyes on him for just a mere 30 minutes. And so what you see are these tactics of what the weaponization of this government is doing. And I will tell you, there is nothing like stepping into the courtroom and hearing the United States of America versus Ronald Colton Maccabee and having the full weight of the federal government come against you. We have to understand that this is a battle between good and evil. This is a spiritual battle. This is a spiritual war, and we're just fighting these battles along the way. And we have to shed light on what is happening to American citizens by Americans on our own soil. You don't hear about this stuff unless it's in a third world country, but this is happening to Americans. There are 218 individuals locked up across this nation for January 6th. There are 1,200 individuals affected by January 6th. And if you were to look at the numbers that day, I've heard anywhere of up to 3 million people being there on January 6th, but let's just say 1.5 million people. Out of those 1.5 million people, there are 1,200 individuals that have had the full weight of the federal government come behind them. And these families, they are suffering. I can personally say they try to destroy you in every which way, spiritually, emotionally, financially, physically, in my husband's case. And in America, the process is the punishment. You are not innocent until proven guilty. It should be that the government, the prosecution, should have to prove their case to the jury, but instead it was the defense having to prove this man's innocence. And I can tell you, I was there every single day of his trial. There was 5 days of trial, 2 days of jury deliberation. And I knew everything. I've seen all the videos. I knew the tactics that the government was going to try and use. And there's nothing like sitting there watching a man you knew for 14 years try to be absolutely destroyed by the federal government, by these prosecutors that knew nothing. And actually, the prosecutor at the end of the trial told our attorney this is the first time she's ever heard the audio. Now, either she's just dumb and stupid, or I don't know what's going on there. But for you to sit there and say, change your arguments from opening to closing statements. In their closing statement, the government said, well, maybe he was trying to help a cop. Maybe he was trying to save Roseanne Boylan's life. And yet the 12 jurors came back and convicted him on every charge. Tori, I don't know if there's anybody that has any questions or comments. I would like to shed light on anything that they might not know, right? I've been in this for 2.5 years, and so I feel like I know a lot, but I would like to help educate the general public with what's going on here.
Well, Sarah, let me say, hearing you speak triggers emotion, because I think, the media has done a fantastic job, and that be the media that is against us and for us, right? Have desensitized the public to the atrocities that are happening. I just want people to understand what you mean by diesel therapy. And I want to just expand on that for a second, because that's an actual informal term that is used within the correctional systems. And this was done back in the 90s when William Barr privatized the prisons under Bush Sr. For Hillary Clinton, too. That continued it, hence the super predators. They filled them up. They're all privatized. Now, it's a practice that's frequently transferring the inmate from one correctional facility to another over an extended period. Now, this process often involves very long, uncomfortable journeys in a bus, a van, and that's where the term diesel comes from for people to understand this. Now, the reasons that they do this is to there's a few of them, but one of them is for disorientation and control. Constant movement can disorient inmates, making it very difficult for them to settle into routine or form relationships with other inmates or staff or find some peace so they can collect themselves. And this we usually observe. This happened to Bradley Manning, who then became Chelsea Manning. Okay. And this is what we do to prisoners of war as well, because this method is a form of exerting control over particularly troublesome or high profile inmates. So people understand this is a form of torture. It is in the torture manual that I had highlighted many, many years ago that a gentleman had wrote that worked with Dianne Feinstein. Now, I had detailed it that people need to read those 6,000 pages report because diesel therapy is one of those avenues they use. It's actually torture. In addition, this type of diesel therapy, as they say, um, increases isolation from support. So by transferring them, it keeps him unable to keep in touch with family, with lawyers, with support networks. And by being moved around, sometimes across large geographical distances, sometimes not. It's just moving them around and not knowing where they are makes it very difficult to talk to your attorneys and for your family to visibly see you in your condition that you are at. This is how they avoid it. Now, it's also used as an unofficial method of punishment or deterrence, but that's not an official sanctioned use of prisoner transport. Now, there could be security reason that that's being done, but I want people to understand. We talk about entrapment like we saw in Michigan, where they were telling people, I mean, even to Trennis, right? They approached him, hey, want to come and bring us guns and do this? And it was the most insane thing. And it was led by a guy that had popped himself up during the Trump campaign, right? In one of his rallies that was a criminal. And kind of through proximity, they were trying to drum it up. He was one of those assets that was actually trying to entrap people to conduct the kidnapping or, Second Amendment rallies by holding your guns, like many people that tell us they're our friends portray that to the people, that they should rally with guns. I mean, that sounds insane. And I'll tell you something, Sarah, before the elections, knowing what was coming, I had advised my listeners, I don't think anyone should go. This is a trap. I am going. And if you go and watch President Trump, that's great, but just do that. I was the only one saying that. And when I was down there, all I did was observe. And, because I had credentials, press credentials from the White House, I was able to enter in certain areas and observe. All I did was observe and collect information. Even with Ivan Raiklan will tell you, he was like, hey, we're going to do this. I was like, dude, I'm working. I'm trying to find out what building they want to storm and who's doing it. And it seems to be that there are people amidst us that are assisting this, and I can't partake because everyone was very excited. We were able to collect information. There was a 12th Amendment case that was going to be heard that, was stymied because, now we're seeing people come out and show their true colors post that. Everyone hailed Jenna Ellis as, top star in all these people. It was a very well calculated plan. And so entrapment comes in many ways. It occurs when law enforcement agents induce a person to commit a criminal act, right? So that the person would otherwise be unlikely to commit, right? Like an example is the governor of Michigan, kidnapping scheme. Another one is, that they want someone to bend the knee. The reason that they're treating them like this is because if they can flip them and you say what we tell you to say, and you'll be fine. And you'll be out, you'll be hailed a hero, you'll get a slap on the wrist, but we promise you'll have a job, your family will be taken care of. There is one person that can't come on the record because those are kind of like those secret plea deals, right? So there are these things going on in the background, which will be tapped. These people will come out and state these things when the time is right, because their lives are literally in danger. And I don't think people understand that. And this is why I refrain from publicly putting out what we have discovered. There are little bits and pieces that have manifested themselves within various of these cases of these J6 prisoners. And they're political prisoners, prisoners of an actual civil war that we refuse to acknowledge. And so at this point, um, the only thing I can say, aside from we're praying for you, is I want to know, and this is just me, right? I've been through my share of bearing a cross. Yours is massive. And in addition, not just for your husband, but for others, how do you do that? Because I know that when I went through what I went through, that almost broke me to the point of no return. And, for you, having pseudo support from people, is that the right term to use, I guess, where they're like, oh, we will support you. But if it doesn't seem right the way the support is coming. So I'd like you to speak on that, because, it's one thing when you see certain people get released and you're like, well, hold on a second. What about the other people? Why just that person? It makes you sit and think, why did they get support and not my husband, who served his nation, took an oath to protect people, and that's what he did. And now he's being penalized for it because the federal government wanted him to say something, right? And this is my assumption. You didn't say that. I'm making that clear. I know from the way we take prisoners of war outside of the United States that this is a very good tactic. The movement, the isolation, the difficulties, and then not only that, targeting your representation, right? We've seen a lot of attorneys just do really stupid things, and you're thinking, what is going on? I've spoken to a lot of people that have been implicated in these events. Some are home, some are presenting themselves to prison right after the new year. I mean, we have a lot of people going to jail as of January 3rd. This is not okay. And I want you to speak to the point of, how does it feel when people are telling you, hey, I want to help you, or they're kind of giving you help as long as, it's a TV hit. But then after that, it's kind of like a potato. How do you deal with that? It would crush me. I'm just telling you, it would crush me that you're out in the public saying all these things, and then when I really need you, you're not there. How do you deal with that?
Honestly, a lot of people want to call themselves American patriots, but I see them as keyboard warriors, because what America used to be is you had communities that would come in and support you, support your family for whatever you might be going through, your neighbors, your churches, your local businesses. We took care of our own. And then the big federal government came in and said, no, 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 we are going to take care of you. And so we kind of lost that personal touch, right? So we have so many people say that they want to help, but then they say, oh, we're praying for you. Our thoughts and prayers are with you, but they don't do anything about it, right? And so that's how we have to come together collectively as Americans, as patriots, and say, you know what, we're going to help these individuals because they stood in the gap for us on January 6th. Now we're going to stand for them until they get out. It could be any form of support, writing them, helping them financially. I want to call out the churches across America as a whole, because January 6th is very political and we have our beliefs. And so that's why a lot of people don't want to touch it. But it doesn't matter about that. It's about what happened from January 7th on to these individuals. They lost an income, they lost the breadwinner of their house, and now their families are having to figure out how I can provide Christmas to our children? How can I continue to pay for their school things? How can I continue to pay my electric and my car payment and whatever it is? The best way to describe these defendants is you go to church and you pick row number 19 and you tell all of the men to stand up. It doesn't matter if they're 18 or 68 years old, and they are immediately taken away from their families. And so a lot of them have sold their homes. They've sold their assets. They've drained their savings accounts to try and continue to pay for them to be in prison because it is very expensive. Talking about diesel therapy, going back to that very quickly. My husband was moved 7 times to 6 different facilities. At one point, I did not know where he was for 5 days, and neither did his attorneys. Literally kidnapped by the federal government, by the U.S. Marshals. I did not know where he was. And when he called me, it was a 5-minute phone call, and he sounded frantic when he picked up the phone, or when I picked up the phone. He said, "Sarah, what day and what time is it?" Because he was held in a cell with nothing but a Bible and a jail handbook. And he wasn't able to take a shower. He had no window in his cell, and so he didn't even know what day or time it is. That is where the process is the punishment. But when they do that, they immediately lose their commissary, and it takes 60 days for their families to be refunded that money. And so every time he is moved, I have to buy him new undergarments, I have to buy him new shoes, I have to buy him new entertainment methods. So like whether they have a tablet and they're able to listen to music or watch movies, or every phone call, every message I've had to pay for. I also have to pay for his food because they're fed terribly in there. And so they have to buy food off of commissary to make something, as simple as tuna. Because they get little to no protein in there. It's a lot of carbs. And so, every time he's moved, it costs me a couple $100 just to get him back on his feet. What I call old man shoes, the white shoes with the Velcro, that you could go to the store and buy, $15, $20 in this economy. I pay $58 for every time he is moved because they price gouge these individuals. And so that is where the process is the punishment. And these people need to know that this is not, this is about exposing this corrupt system, exposing this regime to what they're doing to individuals, but it is also about exposing these systems that are in place. I can't for the life of me figure out why our prison system is stuck in 1812, why they're only allowed to make one 15-minute phone call a day. And so they have you, and that you pay for, mind you, but you have to decide, am I going to call my spouse? Am I going to call my parents? Am I going to call my children? They have to make that decision. So how can they be a spouse? How can they be a parent? Is just beside me. This is America. And yes, a lot of people in prison did bad things, but we need to treat them like human beings, and they have constitutional and civil rights.
I couldn't agree with you more. And the torture is extending to you. And what I've realized is that the legal system, the judicial system in general, for the past 3 years has utterly failed us, from mandates to lockdowns to vaccines and now to just general justice. And to my audience that has been with me all these years, I had highlighted one person that was arrested that nobody liked, right? That was part of this social media craze of the Q thing. And I said, so now all these good people that preach a First Amendment and all these rights, because they don't like him, he was held without bail and put in a federal prison and essentially tortured, right? And I said, if you don't speak up for him, I didn't like him, but I spoke up for him. If you don't speak up for him, this will happen in a couple of years. And no matter what you do, they have gotten away with it. And I mentioned that when they arrested Austin Steinbart. I said, you should talk about it because he's being held, but they didn't like him because they felt that he was a threat to their economic system that they built. And I gave the warning signs, and it was something so small, because in other realms of social media or clicks, there were other arrests for other things. And because they were polarizing individuals, this was a test. It wasn't as if there was real arrest and torture, if you catch my drift. It was to test the waters of how they can get away with it. And they did. As long as you can demonize someone, people would be okay. I mean, DARPA has been doing this for years. This is my forte, to understand this game theory. And right now, this isn't a game. These are real people. And we have been desensitized completely. Now, I know that he had attorneys, and I wanted you to speak on that because while many might be like, oh my gosh, you have a public defender now, and they speak of it as whatever, oh, we'll get you the best. No, everyone has a price. Public defender is held by other laws, and they can lose everything if they go against their client, especially when they have. And I'm saying this now, so people understand the information I and the people I work with have collected. We have committed ourselves to come down to Tennessee and meet with your public defender and give the public defender everything. And when that's going to happen, well, I'm not going to put it on air, right? But we're going to provide that because that's what's important. I've already made the arrangements, for us to be able to come down there, and I will sit there in whatever Airbnb I have, and we will sit there and we will crush this like no other because we will target it from all areas. Because I'll tell you this, Sarah, January 7th, I was in the Willard with all the others, and I sat across from Mayor Giuliani, right? And I said to him, you need to look at this date and this date and this person and this person. And I said, focus on that and we'll extrapolate the rest. He said, why? I said, look, I've been following this for a long time. We had, undercover videos of federal agents organizing a coup, right? But just like the Russia hoax, it wasn't the federal employees that conducted the acts. It was the actual media assets used. And I refer back to Adam Waldman, the entertainment attorney, where they used it against Julian Assange. It's the same team and operation. And, while Ivan and many other people say we need all the footage, right? They failed to realize that they had contracts with broadcasting companies. The actual Capitol had contracts with broadcasting companies. I repeat, broadcasting companies. And therefore, they are unable to actually release. While we see some of the footage and all of us are seeing different angles, I already had that. In 2021, Nancy Pelosi, as you know, her daughter was one of the key production managers of the show that we saw that was J6. And HBO had accidentally uploaded over 60,000 hours of footage, 60,000, and it was open. And I got it all. I didn't have to hack. Someone, maybe a guardian angel, maybe just a stupid intern, right, had it up there. And when I saw it, I took it all and went through every single minute. I actually flew to New York. I told the mayor, hey, we got to look at Alexandria Pelosi really well because Michael Voss was taking point on this, and they've got everything on HBO. And it was at that point that it was realized that we have everything. So right now, none of that was released because what you want to do is see what they are doing, right? You want them to say, hey, we're giving you everything. But then you're like, really? You give me everything? What about this? Oh, sorry. We made one mistake. Oh, yeah? Well, what about this? Oh, that's a second mistake. I mean, how many mistakes? And that will come in the future to show just how, they obfuscate. And hopefully we can help your husband be that voice. He took his oath. He did what he could. Everyone there's a lot of people that I know that were arrested, that are in jail. Some of them are waiting to be arrested because they're like, oh my gosh, I was there. And I walked in because it felt like I was in a concert. I was in, this is human psychology. They use that to their advantage, just like they use us on social media to amplify certain messages and directives. And they have caused a desensitization even within the conservative community. And that's what's startling. And like you said, the churches, where are they? They make so much money. They do so much. Where are they? Nowhere. So I consider it a blessing that he has a public defender because right now you have evidence for many people, and we'd like to give our evidence, which, by the way, wasn't just, a couple of individuals collecting. I mean, yes, we got that HBO stuff, but all my listeners that sit and dig and look, they found some interesting things too. So this was a collective. So we the people will lift you up. I also want to put his address up on the screen, but having said that, before we do that, I'd really like you to speak to the litigation concerns, like the attorney, what happened, how it happened, and where you're at right now. I would really appreciate that.
Yeah, so we actually started out with a public defender here in Nashville because this whole system was so new to us, and that defender got us through the bond hearing here. And then when it got transferred to Washington D.C., we hired private counsel, and we had two attorneys that unfortunately cost a fortune. And a year and a half into it, I had a very well-known attorney in D.C. say, "Sarah, why are you paying for private attorneys when your husband's still in jail? You've spent your own fortune, sold your house, and he's still sitting in jail, and you haven't even gone to trial yet." And I said, a year and a half into this, thank you for being the one that speaks truth to me. So we fired our private attorney and got a public defender to get us through trial, get us through sentencing. So we weren't continuing to pay all of this money, and then saved the money for appeals. Because in Washington, D.C., as most of you know, there's a 99.6 conviction rate right now. And so it doesn't matter if you have private attorneys or a public defender, when you are in front of a DC jury and fighting the federal government, you are not going to win. And so now these cases have to be taken to the Circuit Court of Appeals, which again, a lot of these defendants now don't have the money for, because we are taught, that to cooperate with the FBI and the police, and we are told to hire private counsel because that's what is done in all of these high-end cases. And so we did what we were taught and thought we knew, and all of this has come to light. And so we changed our course of action.
And just put it out there again. In Washington, D.C., and many court systems, they use AI to filter through all the jury pool persons that they can call for. Now, it's called the magic wheel. They tell you that it's random, but it's not. In fact, years ago, I had Roger Stone on, who I don't particularly like, but I don't hate him, right? And I told him, hey, you know why you were convicted and you had these crazy foremen, right? And which was imperative that that had happened because it showcased it. They're using this AI system that's created by ClearForce that has been sold to all courts. So what happens is, if a prosecutor is coming at you and I want to convict you, right, Sarah? Because I don't know, you stole my cat, but then you gave it back, but I want to sue you, right? Just make it a criminal act. Let's just pretend. The jury wheel, me as my prosecutor that wants to prosecute you, will field all the information they have on all citizens that are eligible to be part of the jury pool. And what they will do is they will hone in on those that are cat owners and bring them in. So in this case, that'll hone in on people that are completely left wing Kool-Aid federal employees, federal contractors that you can't really pinpoint, because when you contract with the federal government, you're once, twice, three times removed, which will do anything the government tells them because they pay them. And so this is how they select a jury pool that will already be biased. This is how they get these convictions through juries. And that's horrific, because even if you get a jury trial, it's not going to be fair because you already have a jury pool that is biased. Now, God can intervene and enlighten them during the time to make the right decisions. But 9 times out of 10, if you've been selected during the voir dire and all that, out of a pool that's already biased against you, you're more than likely, up against a really hard sell. You've got a judge that's in the pocket, right? And has to comply with whatever they say. And then you've got a jury pool that won't bite the hand that feeds them. So you're kind of stuck. Now, the lawyers that you had to fire, you sold your house, you have done everything. And I want to tell you something. When we do things, when we are wrongfully targeted, and I say this from experience, it comes back to us a million times. especially when we don't give up our morals and values to succeed, right? If we stick by our morals and we have faith, everything happens. So in this time, you have this public defender. When is the next time you will be getting a hearing or any representation? Can you tell us like what the outlook looks like, in respects to that?
Yeah, so he will be sentenced February 29th in DC. As I said, he had trial in October in front of a DC jury and was convicted on all counts, 7 charges. And so he will be sentenced February 29th in DC in front of Judge Contreras. And then after that, we can start the appeals process. The government is going to ask for 168 to 208 months. That's 14 to 17 years is what the government is going to ask for his time.
That's insane. I want people to understand that. That's insane. And what is it that he did?
Nothing. He tried to save a woman and helped an officer. And, you need to look at these, how they compare, one, to the Summer of Love, how they compare to when the left took over Washington, D.C. with the inauguration. Those are very similar cases that you can look at. In particular, in 2017, when BLM took over Washington, D.C., and you look at those cases, they, after 4 cases, went in front of a D.C. jury. 2 were hung, 2 were acquitted. They decided to drop all of the other cases. Yet you have 1,200 cases that have been heard in front of DC, and you're getting a 99.6 conviction rate. That is the same courts, the same prosecutors, the same federal law enforcement that is doing it. And it's all for political gain.
So allow me to share this graphic here with everyone. This is the Stand in the Gap Foundation that you have. There's a Patriot Day, from what I realize, which is happening. And on the screen, you can all see Ronald Maccabee's address. So I would urge any of you that have an extra stamp or Christmas card to just send them off. And it doesn't have to be during Christmas. Before, I mean, it would be ideal, but let's just bombard him and tell him that we are fighting on his side. Let him know that we are coming. And the people, is a force to be reckoned with. I'll be sharing this graphic on all my social media platforms after our show, Sarah. I mean, I don't know what to say. I'm actually stupefied for words because, when I see all of these defendants, including your husband, you're also on trial. And that's the thing that people don't realize. And a few days ago, I was on a space and a gentleman came on. This has really wrecked me. Okay. Just thinking about it. Then his son committed some petty misdemeanor and went to jail. As a parent, myself, if my child commits a crime, I'm still going to love them, visit them every day with muffins, right? And say, hey, just do your time and get out and be better and be best, right? He didn't get that opportunity. His son not only passed away in the prison system, but they provided his son back with vacant of organs. This is extreme, but this is real. We're not treating prisoners as human beings. Okay. We are not treating them as human beings, and it's constantly happening in the system. I've heard from attorneys for other J6 defendants of the way they're treated and how they're treated. Some people that I saw, one person that threw a flash bomb into the police. That person is out, had El Chapo's wife's attorney, and they're out. And yet here we have people still waiting, fighting on the only information they're allowed to have. How do you defend yourself without accurate information? How do you defend yourself when you're based on the narrative the media created rather than the factual actions and what occurred that day? This is the most distressful part about it, that no one seeks to speak about, that we have people currently right now trying to defend themselves on sandcastles. They're on sand. They don't even have accurate information, but they're using inaccurate information or whatever information they're allowed to have to defend themselves. This is one of the most atrocious things I've seen happen. And as I stand back and just watch all of this, where people are constantly raising funds but nothing's happening. just like someone told you. You've been paying and paying and nothing's happening. It's almost like the election fraud thing. People spent so much money, and where did we go? We got a couple of nice documentaries. We saw, what happened, but did it get fixed? No. And we saw people come out like Michael Lindell and pour money out, right? And what have they done? Absolutely nothing, because they make sure that Mike Lindell isn't effective with his wallet. This is something that happens. So imagine now we're talking about people in jail and so many people providing all this money, and yet nothing is happening. They're constantly, well, the system's rigged. We've heard that before. A system can be rigged, but you can unrig that by bringing some truth and actual actions. And there's a lot of people that don't even want to partake because they're terrified of the repercussions they will have. And that goes back to the attorneys, right? We saw the attorney pool representing people for civil liberties, for everything, and even defense dwindle down to less than 3 digits, right? We've got double digits of attorneys nationwide that would be willing to put their names on something that are going to help rather than put their name on something to monitor and derail. That's another thing. And this is such a tangled web that they have woven that it's so hard to put your finger on it. And I know many people be like, what? I'm glad it's a public defender. Public defenders are held on another standard in regards to representation. They're not allowed to kind of just sit back and kind of go status quo. And when they have an army of people bombarding them, this public defender will be one of the most famous people. I guarantee you, Sarah, he will be one of the most famous people of 2024 because, he'll have no choice. I mean, he might even run away, but that'll be a problem for him too, right? Because public defenders can't remove themselves from a case either without just cause. So the one thing that is important is the fact that he's a public defender means that he can't be threatened easily because the federal government will be all over it. So this is indeed a blessing in disguise, because public defenders that may get threats from, wannabe, hackers and people that will offer him money, he's under tight watch, both good and bad. And I know, Sarah, you probably don't want to hear this because of the atrocities, and I get a lot of heat for it, but I'm pretty sure that Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, he's at the top of the FBI. He's a man of very few words. And a lot of people are like, you're not doing it. Maybe he is doing his job by letting them do their worst. And it's important that we encourage your husband to have faith and stand strong, because the cross he's bearing is not just his, it's for everyone. And this is for our nation. So he's doing one of the biggest service that anybody can do. It's almost like going into war, because this is a war. And this is a war for our sovereignty as a nation, for the rule of law, and for transparency. I mean, the First Amendment is almost gone. The censorship is real, and people must bend the knee. I don't know if they have given him any plea deals that are not allowed to be spoken of, but if he stands strong, God and the people first, will lift him up to heights that no one's ever seen, just like President Trump has been lifted up by the people because he spoke and stood in the gap. And so I'm really excited for that. I wanted to share this video, the J6 choir video, if you don't mind. May I? As a break. I feel like it's important for us to feel it and see it. So allow me to do that, please, if I may. May I?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because I want people to see, these people as they are. People.
Before you play that, can I give the backstory on how this all came to be?
Well, that's okay. Yeah, let's do the backstory first. Please go ahead.
So these individuals have been housed in Washington, D.C. since January of 2021. And I believe it was March of 2021 where they were locked into their cells 23 hours a day. They were allowed out 1 hour to take a shower and make one phone call. And then they were locked back in. And that happened for almost over 2 years, about 2.5 years. They just recently have been able to get out 22-2 and now 19-5. But when they were in their cells, it was a very hard time for them. They were hardly able to speak to their families, of course, and just the unknown. And they decided to sing the national anthem every night at 9 p.m., no matter what they were going through. They flash their lights and they sing the anthem. And so this is how this song came to be. These are actual defendants that are housed in Washington, D.C. right now that you are about to hear that sing our national anthem every night at 9 p.m.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Like, I have no words. I don't know if anybody else was crying, but I was totally bawling in the back. You know what? I have to say, I'm sorry, I got really emotional because when you're in a really tough spot, and I've been there, you trust that your nation that stands for all these amazing things, right, will stand by you. And that is what we're seeing. We're seeing them have faith in those that took the oath. You know what came to mind? That we heard the voices of these prisoners, but there are people that were in prison that killed themselves because they weren't strong enough. Who is going to fight for them? You know, that took their lives because they didn't know what was going on and they were pressured and they broke. Will those that tortured them the way they're torturing everyone else, you know, we women, for example, right? Because we can give birth, we have high tolerance of pain, right? There's no man that will squeeze out a watermelon from a quarter size hole. Okay. That's fact. So emotionally, some people break at different levels. Imagine, guys, how many unspoken names exist. I write them down. I have them on a paper that I had that have taken their lives because they broke and they didn't have to. What did they do? They stood up. outside of the Capitol. Some of them walked in. I mean, everybody was walking. So they just thought, okay, I'll just walk in. It's my Capitol. I guess we're doing this. And they got excited and they killed them. They took their own lives. Who's going to be held responsible? Because that's murder. You tortured someone you shouldn't have tortured, right? So that you can flip them, because there is documentation of that. Don't let anyone think that nothing disappears. So, sorry, I got really, really emotional because I thought of all those people that can't sing too, that took their lives. Did they not have moms, dads, families, children, a pet that they left at home? What if they were single and had a pet at home that starved because, nobody came back for it, right? These are all things, that I think of. I don't know what the rest of the public does, but this is an extremely tragic situation. And the world has been desensitized because all we see is J6 the truth, J6 the truth, J6 the truth. And none of it is really the truth, to the point that people don't want to hear it anymore. And they're just like, yeah, it really sucks. It's a shame. That's what you get. I don't know how you respond to that. How I can't, I just don't talk about it because I'll be really mean when I hear people, and it's like, stop, don't talk to me. I will jump at you because this is not okay. It is not okay the way they're treated. It is not okay that, in order to hold people accountable, you got to keep your mouth shut, right? It's like, say, Sarah, you knew that I had a deck of cards in my pocket, right? That were all aces, but you didn't know that, right? I didn't know that you knew. And then, you already knew the evidence that I had all aces, but you let me show my cards slowly. And then what happens when you're like, well, here you go, Tori. What happens then? Justice. And so that's the problem that we have right now, is that we've desensitized people on the elections, right? Where people are like, yeah, it was stolen. What can we do? And it's like, look, they did ballots. Nobody cares about that. It's machines. But we're looking at all of these things rather than that. Here's for J6. We're looking at what the media said, how they rounded people up, how there's people getting rounded up every single day right now in 2023, right? Almost 2 years later, people are still in their homes shitting their pants thinking, oh my God, what if they raid me on Christmas while my kids are opening up their presents? This is real, right? And no one is showing the reality of it. We get superstars that are like, yeah, I was there and I'm out. And it's like, stop. I don't want to hear it. Anytime I hear people say J6 this, J6 that, I'm like, stop. Because you know what, Sarah, I had put out a preview of my J6 documentary that we put together. And the preview within 4 months had all those people that were media assets arrested, because they could not say that what I said was, I outlined their cameras, I outlined their collusion, where the reporter was talking smack about the people she was with, yet she was working with them. You can't make this up. And, there's all these organizations that sprung up to help, but people don't see the origin of those organizations or where the money that these organizations are getting it from. And then people are opening up their wallets. I've been opening it up. I'm blessed. I bless back because, I have people saying, well, you shouldn't do that because, you need it. And it's like, well, they need it. And if I super need it, God will bring it back to me. That's how we must think. All of us should think like that, right? But how many people have lost money, effort, and time into scenarios or stories that didn't really help the cause? I mean, I don't know how you do it. I mean, I really don't. I would like for you to speak on this Patriot Day for me just a little bit, because I want to know how it was put together. Um, you know what's involved, and then I'll put the graphic back up. But I really want to know, how you guys came about doing this.
So we say Patriot Day for January 6th should be a national holiday, and we do hope at some point that it is. So these individuals that have suffered are remembered for standing in the gap, and for the individuals that lost their life that day. We are in a fight for justice across the board for these men that are still incarcerated, the 1,200 people that have been affected by January 6th, but also the people that lost their life that day. Their names shall not go down in vain, and they will stand up on the right side of history. So we are having an event. Patrick Byrne with the America Project is hosting an event on Long Island on January 6th, where we are going to raise awareness about the atrocities surrounding January 6th. You'll hear from January 6th defendants themselves. We have a mom panel about how it's affected their families. We have FBI whistleblowers, U.S. Marshal whistleblowers. We have people that were there that day that haven't necessarily been affected by it, but are scared at any point that the FBI is going to come busting down. We also have highfalutin conservatives that are going to be speaking on the behalf of January 6th. And then at 9 p.m., we are going to sing the national anthem with those defendants that are still incarcerated in Washington, D.C. And all of the proceeds are going to go benefit. I have co-founded a foundation called Stand in the Gap that Tori briefly mentioned on. And this foundation was birthed out of this travesty of injustice. And while we are focused on the January 6 defendants and their initial needs right now, it is a long-term thing to make sure that this never happens again in our country. And so, like we talked about earlier, one of the projects that we fund through our foundation, which is a 501c3 approved by the IRS, is we fund families to go visit their loved ones that are incarcerated. For 2 years, they weren't even able to lay eyes because they didn't have video visits. They weren't even able to lay eyes on their loved ones and see how they are. They weren't able to see their children grow up. They weren't able to see their spouses or their parents. And so after Congressman Troy Nehls went into the DC jail and finally granted them in-person visitation, they were so ecstatic. And then about 2 hours later, they realized that they could not financially afford to see their loved ones for a mere 1 hour visit, to fly them from all over the country. And so we came together as an organization and we have funded over 30 families that are able to now see their loved ones, not only in DC, but across America as a whole, because it is very important that they know that not only the general public supports them, but that their families are supporting them. A hug, able to hold their hand, able to hold their children. There are defendants that have never seen their children because they were born after they were apprehended. So it's very important to keep that family unit together. And so those are the things that we do through our foundation, and the proceeds from that event will go to our foundation to continue to do good for all people.
So I wanted to say something. You call it Patriots Day. Now, Sarah, on the record, have we ever spoken together before?
No.
Okay. Did you know of me at all back in
I
2020?
did not during 2020, no.
Good. That's key. Because I want to show you something that I did in 2020. Okay. I'm going to put this video up, and I think it's going to hurt a lot of people. But you called it Patriots Day, and I want you to see what I did in 2020. Okay. Get ready for this. It's going to be a doozy.
If I give you one message to hold in your hearts today, it's this: never, ever give up. I will fight for you with every breath in my body, and I will never, ever let you down. I'm with you, the American people. I am your voice.
So it was very interesting to see you call it Patriots Day for me, because I knew what was coming. And I put that video and said the trump card is you, because it's about the people putting it together and getting it done. I'm really glad that this event is happening, and post the event, right, I'll provide you what is necessary. President Trump was, a key proponent of showing people the truth. And he, like your husband and many others, are now being held accountable for actually embodying the everything that our forefathers foresaw for our nation. And it drives me, it blows my mind, really. Okay. It really blows my mind thinking that this is happening in 2023 at the time where we have access to information like no other. So let me put this graphic back on for everyone to see. As you can see, this is where it's being held. You can find more information at j6mail.com. Please make sure, to send the mail. This is Ron's address, so you can send him Christmas card, New Year's card, anything. Just drop them a line. You can only send them books. You can't send them care packages. And you know what I wanted to ask, Sarah? How is it that we can donate to the commissary? Right? Because we want to be able to provide money to the commissary so that he can have access to anything. I mean, I know when my uh, some people that I had friends were arrested, the commissary was important to them, obviously, so they can get fed. And well, let me start with that. How do we access information, or if you can provide it to me and I can put it on the screen and on my social media, uh, how we can contribute to that, please?
So in DC, it goes through Western Union, and so you have to go to Western Union, and there's a specific tab for inmates, and you have to know their inmate number, the facility that they're in, and the correct spelling of their name. And so any of those inmates, you can go to patriotmailproject.com, and they have all of that information readily available that you can put money on their commissary.
Okay, so on the j6mail.com, I mean, all of us can put $1 for every single one of them. And if every single person, I mean, right now on YouTube, we have about 600 people. So that would be $600, right? That each of them would get if everyone would give them $1. Just so people understand. This is just YouTube, I'm saying. WeChat, I don't know if the Chinese and the Koreans, can contribute to that, right? But for all of you that are listening that are within the United States, I'm going to go ahead and do that, right? I'm going to provide $1. I have my Christmas cards ready, and I'm going to provide that and just tell them, hey, I'm fighting for you. I'm sorry that you're defending yourself with bad information. We, the people, are actually looking after everything, and we will support you no matter what, because they're literally on the front lines for us right now in that sector of our judicial system and the way it is. Because, like you so well put it, if they're doing this to your husband, imagine what they're going to do to other people that, are not your husband. So the next question that I kind of want to ask is, when you first saw him, right? Like, what was that conversation like? I just want to know. I mean, if you don't want to answer it, that's totally fine. But, I was just kind of trying to put myself in your shoes, and that got me really, really emotional. But I just wanted to know, like, how was it, to actually see him for the first time after him being arrested? Like, you know, how did that go?
Well, I will be honest with you, I was more nervous than when I went on my first date with him. And I had been married to him for 6 years at that time when I saw him. But he walked into the room. Like I said, it was behind glass and on the phone, and it was very emotional. We probably just sat there and cried for the first 5 minutes, to be able to see him after not only that much time that had passed, but to know what he had gone through and to know the war that he had been fighting, not only in the thing that happened on January 6th, but all the atrocities that had happened since January 6th. And, just being able to hear that person's voice, but being able to see them was certainly a different um, sort of feeling. So it was very sad, but it was very hopeful at the same time and happy. So all the emotions rolled into one. And then he was moved to another facility where I was able to give him a hug. And that encounter was certainly one that was much needed for a very long time, just to be able to give him a hug and that physical touch that most of these men need. And I was able to sit across from him for the first time for an hour, and I was able to talk to him after 2 years with nobody listening into our phone calls. And so we were able to, talk about the case, talk about how he really was without having the FBI or the jail listening in to our conversations.
That must have been really hard. I find it, that's got to be really hard, to have that happen, um, to not be able to have a private conversation. I mean, even the private one wasn't really private. You and I both know that, right? But the the feeling of maybe a little bit more private would have been better. I just can't imagine seeing someone you love have to go through this. And obviously, every time you see them, they look different to you. They look older, they look tired, thinner, fatter, depending on, what kind of abuse they're subject to. Um, Another question is, you don't have to answer if you don't want to. I know within the prison systems in general, and I was advocating for that. Hence why, with the OSHA mandate, I actually was one of the companies. I mean, my company is small, but it was I made it big enough per se to file a lawsuit at the Supreme Court against the OSHA mandates. I know that the prison system utilized prisoners as guinea pigs, utilizing the cloak mask mandate, which is another thing people should address. You may not like the criminals that are in there, right? Just I'm not talking about J6. I'm talking about in general, the prison system. You may not like them, but they are under no, uh, they're not children of a lesser God. They have the same rights, even though they're in prison. They're just restricted on freedom for reform. They were used as guinea pigs for the majority of these vaccination schedules. How did that go about with the people of J6? Because, no one really talks about that. I think it's important that we understand, how their rights are deprived, of course, the torture they go through. But, did you guys have that discussion on the vaccine? Were they forcing them? Did they do it without their consent? These are questions that I have. I mean, if you don't want to, you don't have to answer it. But no one's had this conversation. They talk about other prisoners, that maybe, and they talk about rapists and this, and it's like, yeah, but there's people there that was maybe a mom that was hungry and stole the Enfamil, right? That's in jail, or someone that's a prostitute because, she was in trafficking and that's her job, or someone that just had a really shitty day and drank a lot and, was loud that are in jail. Does that mean that all there, or someone that just messed up, and did wrong things? No one's a saint. Does that mean they don't have rights? So I've been kind of talking about that, but laid off the J6 because it's a really hot topic. So would you extrapolate on that? Like, how was that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, they tried to get them, the majority of them, specifically for the January 6th defendants in DC, they tried to get them to take the COVID vaccine, and they dangled seeing their families in front of them. They dangled being able to go to the barbershop and get their hair cut. They dangled religious services in front of them. They even dangled seeing their attorneys. Oh, you have to get the vaccine before you can have any of those things. And some of the individuals did take the vaccine because of that. And then afterwards, they still weren't able to see their family at visitation. They still weren't able to go to chapel, still weren't able to get their haircuts or even clip their nails. These are the types of tactics they are using against these defendants. And this is in specific to January 6th. I don't know about the other individuals that are held in Washington, D.C., but they did try to get them to take the vaccine and use those things as an incentive for them to do that. But also their medical care is just atrocious. My husband's glasses broke while he was in there, while he was playing basketball. And that was in October of 2021. And he has still yet to receive glasses. I can't send contacts into him. And so while we were in trial, the attorney literally had to ask the judge before the jury had come in and said, can I give my client contacts? So that was his way of getting them back into the jail, was we had to, and he had to do it in front of the court. And so these things, just like the whole incident that happened when he was assaulted, their way of taking care of it in medical was to throw him into a hot shower, put him back into contaminated clothes, and then stick him in a cell for 13 hours without any medical attention. This is the stuff that is happening. And if you go and read, and Marjorie Taylor Greene went and visited in November of 2021, and she talks about some of the medical atrocities that had happened in there, where there was a gentleman whose hand was turning blue and they wouldn't give him any medical attention. There was a gentleman that was in there who had cancer, and when he would go to the medical unit after he was taken for radiation and chemotherapy, they put him in an area that only had a bed for observation, and he couldn't even have a glass of water for 36 hours. They're alone. They have things that happen in their life. Some of them have lost parents, some of them have lost grandparents, and they're even afraid to say anything that they have lost these and that have died, and they're afraid to even say that, because then they will put them on suicide watch, which means they go into a glass box with nothing. And so they would rather deal with it on their own and have the support of the other January 6th defendants in that pod, versus even saying something, even asking for any sort of mental help for the PTSD they have gone through. They do not get any sort of attention in that aspect.
Sarah, I know that the majority of the people that are now being detained for what they want to call an insurrection, which was literally a production by foreign intelligence. I'm restating that. The fact that they're deprived of good medical care, the fact that they're treated as such, the fact that, they would love for you to be on suicide watch, because then it's your fault. They didn't do anything. They were trying to help you, kind of like Epstein didn't kill himself kind of thing, right? Right? Wasn't he in the suicide things?
Mm-hmm.
This isn't fun and games. And that's why, when I see on my social media channels people sharing, this is the truth of J6, I literally flip tables or throw things, because no, the real hard truth is that we're so desensitized that we're not seeing how atrocious it is. We're talking about it. We're saying, oh, this is really bad. But people that have never been on the receiving end of a prison system will never understand it. Now, I have seen people captive in, as prisoners of war. And what I'm seeing is exactly that. And to utilize torture methods that are acceptable on average American citizens is insane. I mean, you know what sucks? That when Chelsea Manning had all this attention from the right, why didn't they talk about how she was converted into Chelsea Manning and the torture that Bradley went through and what they did to him, right? This is the exact same MO. I'm going to be surprised if I don't see people come out the other end as an opposite sex, women turning into men, men turning into women, right? The fact that they would deprive them of religious rights because they wish to have bodily autonomy, right? To refuse an experimental vaccine is a crime in itself. And yet, where are all the good attorneys to file that? Where are all the big mouths that are out there to talk about it and actually put their work into it and say, oh, this is bad. Let's sue them for doing this violation of right for all of them. That would have been a hole-in-one done. The judges wouldn't be able to dismiss that. The judges would not. If there was a class action suit, and I'm saying this to people that are possibly listening for, whatever, and I'll convey this to Patrick Byrne too, right? He's a very good friend of mine, right? I, a lot of people don't like him. He's not, he's like brie cheese. So am I. I get offended when he calls me kooky, because it's like, no, don't do that, right? Don't do that. He knows I'm extremely intelligent, and what I'm saying is the way to crack this open is to go as a class action on behalf of their civil liberties first. Because once you can show that they're being held, captive, just for that, it's one after another. You have to find the right thread. It's kind of like when we have those nice knit sweaters. You can have loose threads, but it's only that one thread that you pull that unravels the whole thing. And sometimes the indirect approach is the right approach in these matters. And that's something that, I think needs to be discussed. I think this is the first time I've heard on air people talking in detail that, you know, how their rights are taken away. Not just, oh, they're in solitaire, oh, they get this and that. I know that a lot of people there, and you probably know it, and I don't have to name names, right? That were in prison were actually treated pretty well. And they've come out saying, oh, yeah, it was really bad. And it's like, no, you were treated well. We know this. You had favor. We know this. And it's hard to put that out there. Would you mind taking a couple of questions, because I did see a few questions. If you guys want to circle your questions back, those on Rumble and YouTube, I'm only able to see questions from you guys. I'm sorry for the other channels. I haven't gotten this done correctly, but I do know that. Oh, one question that was, can people within, like, say you and me were J6 prisoners, if I had money in my commissary note, would I be able to transfer it to you?
No.
Okay. So there is no intertransferability of money between commissary accounts. But I mean, if they know each other, they can all buy each other stuff like mac and cheese and other things.
Yeah, and they do. They hold they will all come out for holidays. So like Thanksgiving, they pulled together all of their commissary and ordered things. They are very creative in there. And so they do for the holidays. They do eat together and they will buy each other commissary and they take care of the guys in there, right? So when there's new people that come in, they have these little packs that they put together with undergarments for them and food and stuff to get them going in there.
Okay. Do you guys have any questions? I'm trying to see the chat. I know there's a delay. That was one key thing. So what can we send? I know we can send books, periodicals, obviously letters, cards, pictures. What else can people send?
Yeah, it has to be very basic. The cards can't have any glitter or any sort of lift on them. It has to just be a very basic card. No like smells or perfumes or anything of that sort. They can send those in. The books have to be softback books and from a publisher itself. So like you can't go to your library and pick books and send them from yourself. It has to actually be from a publisher to get in there to them.
Oh, so you mean like directly from Amazon ship?
Yes.
Okay, so directly from, like, if you're gonna get it from McGraw-Hill, it has to come straight from them, or
Yeah,
Barnes& and Nobles and stuff like that. So you can't ship it from your house.
correct.
Okay, and just so people understand, and I'm gonna elaborate on that, the perfume thing and the smell and the glitter and stuff, the reason that that won't pass and you have to send a really vanilla card, so don't try to send anything extra with, like, moving parts or anything, is because, usually in prison systems, they detect that, some of the paper is dipped in chemicals that may be hallucinogenics and stuff, so, or drugs, that are masked with perfumes, therefore, they will not pass that on, only because it may be considered suspect. But I would highly suggest, and this is just a suggestion, that you all decide to just send a shit ton. Let the mailman come with like a Santa Claus sack of Christmas cards to these people and bombard them with it. You guys know how effective that is. So that's it. Another question that was put up was, do they have a wish list of books?
They don't, honestly, because they don't have much to do in there. They read a lot of anything, honestly. They like skill books. If you want to send them like a how-to, they are always thinking about the future and how they can give back, how can they help, how can they hone their skills. You know, a lot of them, if this right isn't wrong, they come out as felons. And so they have to find things that they usually will never go back to the job that they once had. And so they try to hone their skill set in there, being able to provide for their families when they get out. They love history, of course. They love self-help books, um, anything in regards to that. You can also send magazine subscriptions, so they actually like have things that they can look at. You can send them activity workbooks, so like Sudoku puzzles, crossword puzzles, search and finds, and you can send that like brain teasers as well.
Yeah, I love logic puzzles. The ones that give you a sentence and then you have to kind of make X's. Like I love that. Electronics, do they have access to any of that? Like, to listen to things like radio, YouTube, podcasts, do they have any of that?
So they do have a tablet. There are tablets in there that they share that they are able to. It's called Getting Out, GTL. You can look it up. They and you can find them. You can type in the correctional treatment facility. Like I said, if you go to Patriot Mail Project, they have all of that information on there. And you can put money on there, so they are able to watch TV and movies. They are able to listen to music, and they are able to play games when they have that assigned to them.
Okay, that's fantastic. So, I mean, everyone's going to send Christmas cards and whatnot. Now, I have a YouTube channel that I created, so that way, it is directed to the prisoners of J6, and that way we can send the messages in there. And so, one thing that I was going to do in the new year and the second half of January, and I'd like to put it out there for those of you that wish to contribute, is to create video messages that we will leave them. That, when we write to them, we could be like, hey, just go to this YouTube channel and subscribe, because this is where the people will be dropping messages to you.
So they can't search. So it's basic TV that they are
No,
able to
really? So
watch.
they can't use YouTube.
No, they cannot.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a very basic, clearly it's a monitor tablet, but they have the basic TV channels, and then the movies they are allowed to watch. I believe the app is called Pluto, and they have specific movies that are added on to their tablets.
By the correctional facility, which,
Yes.
is weird, because that's another tactic. I'm just going to say, because our governments, I mean, in this whole world, they use media and movies for suggestive content. And that's interesting. I had no idea. I thought that they had access to just watch things.
No, they actually like to call those tablets the re-education tablets because that is what they try to do with their corrective endeavors.
Yeah, well, that's why I did the Enjoy the Show documentary, because that actually indicates just how in depth it is. January 6th is the last day of Christmas, the 12th day. The cards won't be late. That's with the old calendar. That's correct, Epiphany. Thank you. Someone asked if you could put cash in the card. I'm not going to put it up. No, you can't. You can't put cash in the card. They asked, here's a question from Mary. Her question is, I'm curious as to why they call it a correctional treatment facility. Are they convincing any prisoners that they need medications to keep them sedated? That's a great question, because I've heard that before, and you say it as well. So I would really love for you to expand on that.
No, it's just a part of the jail. So in Washington, D.C., it's a city jail, and there's the correctional detention facility, and the correctional treatment facility is attached to it. That is just where their specific pod is, because they are segregated from the rest of the inmates. So they have their own pod that all the January 6 defendants are housed in.
Oh, wait. So are they not, they're all together but separated?
Yeah, so they are in a pod together, but they are in their own cells inside of that pod.
Oh, wow. So they don't interact with general public prisoners.
Correct. Correct.
Huh. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. Is there anything else you would like to share that I may not have, covered? As I said, I'm in the process of creating a YouTube channel so that everyone can submit with their names, their wishes and how they feel about what happened, to these J6 prisoners, either if they're guilty or not, because there are some that participated, and because they didn't participate hard enough, are in jail. And I stress that for the confidential human sources is what I'm speaking on. But so that way we can write our history, because those that are in power are the ones that write history, right? Not the people. And this time around, it's the people that are in power, so they will be writing history. So I want to create like this channel that just has messages from average Americans that videotape themselves with their family, maybe at Christmas, and say, this Christmas we shared it with you because it's been 2 years and this is happening. I have very good friends that are presenting themselves, coming in January. And I know that there are lawyers that are working with a lot, that like even some Trump appointee that is going to present themselves, and all they did was they were there, right? And they're still going. And your husband actually tried to assist in causing more harm, remembering that he took an oath to protect, and he's sitting in jail. So aside from that, we're going to be doing that, and I would urge everyone, and I was going to put that out tomorrow on my Friday show, so I'll just have to restate it, is that I hope that people today, the people this Christmas, videotape themselves, just on your phone with your family, and just tell them that you're thinking of them and that they're here with you, and it's not Christmas without them. And I'm trying to get a proper Dropbox where people can send it so that I can put it on. Sorry, I do have a question. Someone said, do you have anyone that is in Congress that's actually helping?
That's a double-edged sword. We have had meetings with individuals and they give us a lot of lip service. I will say that Matt Gaetz has done a lot. I actually testified. He pulled together 6 individuals in June, and I testified in front of Congress regarding these atrocities. And so, the thing is we're not going to stop what federal law enforcement is doing, and we're not going to change the judicial system overnight. So while we do have congressional members that are working on things, this is a long, drawn-out process. They can't walk into that jail and say that these individuals are going to be released and sent home. They are a legislative branch of government, and so they are the ones that are going to write bills. So there is, that I can count on one hand, individuals that have given us the time of day, but we do need to put more pressure on these congressional members to actually do something, to actually speak more about it, and not let them get away with the lip service that they give us behind closed doors. There needs to be recognition had for, in this case, in our case in Tennessee, there's 27 constituents that are affected by January 6th. And so the people that represent us need to be reminded that there's 27 families that are affected by this. And there is, out of 50 states, there's 49 states that have January 6th defendants. And so find whatever state you're in, find those individuals. There's a filterable list on Patriot Mail Project, and get local. Those are the families that's how we are going to take our country back, is doing it local and taking care of these individuals.
Thank you. I'm actually sending you a message from someone in Tennessee that wants to reach out to you. Rather than put their private information on there, I think it's important that I just send that to you. So thank you in Memphis. I will get that done. I do have questions here. Let me just pull them up. Let's see. Oh, they want a list. Oh, they said we'd like to see the list of Congress people that are contributing to those videos that we'll do. But that's fine. Where's that question? Because I stopped on it. Okay, would sending you a money card help? Like, what kind of help do you need? You sold your house, all of these things that happen. Like, how can we help you? I'm sure there's help there, but how much more can we do? Because you do deserve a lot more, than me, than anybody right now. For me, this is my perspective. You deserve a lot, because you are carrying this cross, and now you have made it your mission to make sure that other people are also taken care of too. And that shows service to the people, and I appreciate that. Please tell us what can we do? I mean, it's Christmas. What's going on in your life? Like, what's Sarah doing?
Yeah, so if you want to help us as a family, our Give Send Go is www.givesendgo/Maccabee, MCABEE. And all of those funds go to help my husband incarcerated. We have been blessed by the grace of God, and we love to give back to individuals. So even though I co-founded this organization, we help out of our own pocket, and it's not for the glory, it's not for the fame. It's just, there are families out there that are truly struggling. And so through this foundation, you can go to standinthegap.foundation and contribute there, even if it's just $5 a month. If we had, the individuals that say they're patriots doing that, that money goes directly to the families to help them, get them to visitation, help them legally, help them with family services, whatever that is, to alleviate the burden of what these families have had to go through.
Yeah, and we have a common friend that brought us together. Um, who's a fantastic person. Another person that serves the people. I don't know, dude. I'm gonna text and say, hey, can I give you a shout out publicly? Because contrary to like whatever, this gets a million downloads, and sometimes people don't want their name out there, right?
Right.
But uh, it's pretty interesting, how things happen and the timing of things too. Um, so I'm really excited to see where this goes. I know right now that sounds really weird to say, but the trials and tribulations that you go through, especially not only on behalf of yourself and your family, but for the people, are rewarded tenfold, millionfold. And we appreciate everything you and your family are doing. But having said that, Sarah, how are you doing? Like, how is your family doing with all this? Like, on a personal level, like, what does Christmas look like? Because, when, people talk about absent fathers and mothers from the house, right? Or absent loved ones from the house, because I missed birthdays serving, funerals. I missed my father's funeral. I wasn't even told he passed away, not to compromise my assignment. Okay. So these are, and it was like in moment kind of thing, right? So these are really important things that people don't realize. The absence. I mean, what does Christmas look like for you? And what about his family? I mean, his parents must be losing their mind. They think just like you do. Is he fed? Is he warm? Is he cold? Are they at least turning off the lights so he can get some shut eye? Is he allowed to use the bathroom? Can he eat? These are all questions that run through. I want to hear from you how you're doing.
Well, thank you for asking that. It's a one day at a time thing for sure. Every morning I just wake up and I say, Lord, give me the strength to get through today. I don't need to know what tomorrow looks like. I don't need to know what next week looks like, but it is very hard sometimes to even get out of bed in the morning. But this isn't just about me. This isn't just about my husband. This is about all these individuals, and they need people out here fighting for them, giving a voice to the voiceless. And so that's what gets me out of bed every single day to fight for these individuals, to make sure that they stand up on the right side of history. You would think that his parents would think those things. But there has been a storm that's come in our life and has cleared people out of our life, including his family. They do not stand by him. But my family, my parents, I usually can hold it together.
Sarah, stop, because I know the feeling of that. Oh my God. I'm just telling you, you just hit a nerve. So now we're gonna have a cry fest, right? Because when I had hardships, you know, I had family that had to be excised, and it was
Yeah,
extremely painful, especially when it's, they raised you and they've
yeah,
been by you, and that they would not stand by you or at least just give you an encouraging word. No one said you have to do anything. Just at
right.
least pretend you care. Just to make it.
Yeah, he came from a very dysfunctional family prior to all of this. But you think that when tragedy strikes your life, you would have those people that stand by you. But I am so thankful for my family. I can't even put it into words. My parents became his parents a long time ago. That's who he calls mom and dad, and my sisters, that's who he calls his siblings. And they have stood by him through thick and thin, through all of this. They will be there for him when he gets out to get back on his feet. That is what family does. That is unconditional love. And we've had lifelong friends. My best friend was supposed to testify on his behalf after knowing him 26 years. And 10 minutes before his initial bond hearing to speak on his character, he'd messaged me and said, I just can't do this. And so those are just people that were cleared out of our life for a very specific reason. If you're not going to walk in the valley with us, you're certainly not going to celebrate on the mountaintops with us. And they just were not meant for such a time as this. And the Lord called us to do this in this journey. I never thought my life would look like this. I'm just thankful that God gives me the strength and gives my family the strength to encourage me when I have my days. because it's the good, the bad, and the ugly. But we have had incredible people that have come alongside of us and walked this journey with us, people that I would have never met, just like you talking about a mutual friend introducing us. I am so thankful for her. I messaged her the other night and I said, I just want you to know how thankful I am that God put you in my life, and you were a godsend. I have prayed for a very long time for somebody to come into my life to be able to match the efforts that I'm putting in and for God to move. And he absolutely did, in more ways than she even knows, than anybody even knows. And just the strength to get through something of this magnitude. I see God's hand in all of this, even though I do get angry. There are conversations that I am not proud of where, I am angry with the Lord, asking him to move. But it's just not in our timing. It's in his timing.
And it's never the way you want it. I'll tell
Right.
you, Sarah, I have been in that pit, where I had no one, and I know the pain of having all the doors shut. And it's purposeful. This is the way evil works, because this is a spiritual battle. And we should be praying for those that have abandoned you in the time of need, because they're going to have harder lessons to learn. When you prevail at such unfortunate circumstances, there was a general. He's passed, right? I was pretty young when I met him. He was one of my teachers when I was like 12. And he said, the one person that you don't provoke ever is the person that has been isolated and tortured to the level that they can handle, right? Of backlash, of hurt, of ricocheting weapons, right? Being found in a ditch half dead, and they're still smiling. And they're standing up right now, and they care about nothing. They fear nothing. Those people are embraced by God. He said that to me. It wasn't a religious thing, but he just said it like that. Those words kind of stuck with me, because think about it. Those that can withstand the storm are, in fact, the storm. It is so. The storm that they bring becomes even bigger when people can stand on it. And you should pray for those that have not stood by you. Is there anything else you'd like to add? On my socials, I'll share all the links again and everything, but I'm going to put the Give Send Go, which is GiveSendGo /Maccabee, correct? Am I correct? Is that the one?
Yes, that is correct. Yes.
Okay. And there's a prayer that, a lot of people don't really know, or some do, that's very specific for historical Orthodox Christians, right? That is specific for prisoners. So, is there anything else you'd like to add before I close out with that prayer? I have it on a video, so that way it's not me saying it and you and me aren't on camera sobbing, which is a sign of strength, just so you know.
Yeah.
When people are like, oh, you cry. Well, I'm brave enough to do it. And then what? And I still eat it for lunch. See, because you're eating pain for lunch right now. You have been through so much. And for anyone, to just say, oh, this, that, you are strong. I want you to know you are incredible. And aside from lifting that cross that your husband is carrying, right? It's got me and everyone right now that's listening to this on that cross. So you guys are lifting all of us, because that battle is not just yours. And I'm not just talking about your husband. I'm talking about all the other J6 prisoners too, the real J6 prisoners, right? And that's important for us to put forward. So is there anything else you would like to tell, the audience before I close out with a prayer?
Yeah, no, I appreciate all the support. I'm seeing all the comments fly in about how people can help. And I just implore people to get involved. Don't go on about your day and be like, "Oh, I feel so bad for their family. I feel so bad for him." Do something about it, because we the people must be the people. We are in this position 3 years later because of apathy. Enough good people sitting back and doing nothing because it doesn't affect them personally. Get involved on a local level. If you're merely just writing them a letter, letting them know that they're not forgotten. It doesn't have to be anything in depth. You can sign your name on a Christmas card. You can tell them what your family is like, maybe something that you went through that gave you strength, that you pray that gives them strength. Whatever that might might look like. Get involved in any aspect, whether you can give financially to these individuals, to the foundation, whatever that might look like for you, or your time by giving it back to those in your community, writing to congressional members, writing to even state legislators, anybody that holds any type of power, getting involved with small town businesses, because that is the backbone of America. And as I said before, these individuals stood up for us on January 6th. It is time that we stand in the gap for them. Let's not forget them, not only this holiday season, but until they are released and back with their families. Because as somebody said in the comments, none of these families are going to be the same. I know personally the man that walked into prison on August 17th, 2021 is not the man that is going to walk out of those doors. We have to love them unconditionally. We have to show them support. We have to pray for them, because I believe in the power of prayer and the power of numbers, but we must do something about it.
Thank you for that. And we will. The people are doing things. And, obviously they need the right tools because they've been told so many times how they're helping, but they're seeing no results. I believe now is the time for results. This God entered the conversation just a couple days ago. Satan's been having a lot of fun, and it's about time. So, Sarah, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to cover your event too. That'll be interesting. I want to see how things go, and and let me know about the cards that they get and everything.
I
So,
will.
yes, and everyone, here's a prayer for those in prison, regardless if there are J6 prisoners, your children, your family, or just someone you don't know. A prayer is the best currency because this is spiritual warfare, and we need to focus on that. God bless everyone. Sarah, thank you. I can't wait to have you back on again. And I can't wait to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Thank you. Yes, God bless you. God bless your listeners, and God bless America.
God bless America. Thank you. And here we go, guys.
A prayer for those in jail or prison. Almighty God, the Father of mercies and God of all comfort, come to the aid of prisoners and grant prisoners your peace in the midst of this difficult time in their lives. I believe, O Lord, that all of the trials of life are under your care and that all things work for the good of those who love you. Take away from prisoners all fear, anxiety, and distress. Grant them complete detachment to the outcomes of this temporal life. Help prisoners to face and endure their incarceration with faith, courage, and wisdom. Grant that this trial may bring them closer to you, for you are our rock and our refuge, our comfort and our joy. I trust in your love and compassion. Heal my mistrust. I believe, O Lord. Heal my unbelief. Christ God, in thy infinite goodness, please do not let prisoners perish in their humiliation, but grant them death to the passions before they repose in you. Blessed is your name, of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, both now and ever, and unto the ages of ages. Amen.
Amen. So for all of you that stayed and watched, remember, all things that come to us, all bad and even good, are because he says so. Please remember that in any endeavor you take and any harm you feel you may have come across. Nothing happens without his say so. But also remember that we must at all times have faith and never give up, because that's exactly what evil preys upon, people giving up. And I'm sorry, I have to do this again. I'm going to close with President Trump's best speech ever to just show you how enduring and focusing on never giving up actually gets things happening. God bless, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Years from now, some of them may look back and ask themselves whether they've made the right choice, whether they've made the most of the opportunities they've been given. Together, we have the same mission. Over the course of your life, you will find that things are not always fair. You will find that things happen to you that you do not deserve and that are not always warranted. But you have to put your head down and fight, fight, fight. Never, ever, ever give up. Don't give in, don't back down, and never stop doing what you know is right. Nothing worth doing ever, ever, ever came easy. And the more righteous your fight, the more opposition that you will face. In your hearts are inscribed the values of service, sacrifice, and devotion. Now you must go forth into the world and turn your hopes and dreams into action. America has always been the land of dreams because America is a nation of true believers. When the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth, they prayed. When the founders wrote the Declaration of Independence, they invoked our Creator 4 times. Because in America, we don't worship government, we worship God. It is why our currency proudly declares, "In God we trust." And it's why we proudly proclaim that we are one nation under God. The story of America is the story of an adventure that began with deep faith, big dreams, and humble beginnings. The next generation of American leaders never, ever give up. There'll be times in your life you'll want to quit. Never quit. Never stop fighting for what you believe in and for the people who care about you. Carry yourself with dignity and pride. Demand the best from yourself. The more people tell you it's not possible, that it can't be done, the more you should be absolutely determined to prove them wrong. Treat the word impossible as nothing more than motivation. Relish the opportunity to be an outsider. The more that a broken system tells you that you're wrong, the more certain you should be that you must keep pushing ahead. You must keep pushing forward. And always have the courage to be yourself. America is better when people put their faith into action. Pray to God and follow His teachings. Today, each of you begins a new chapter as well. When your story goes from here, it will be defined by your vision, your perseverance, and your grit. You will build a future where we have the courage to chase our dreams no matter what the cynics and the doubters have to say. You will have the confidence to speak the hopes in your hearts and to express the love that stirs your souls. As long as you have pride in your beliefs, courage in your convictions, and faith in God, then you will not fail. As long as America remains true to its values, loyal to its citizens, and devoted to its Creator, then our best days are yet to come. God bless the class of 2017. May God bless the United States of America. And I just want to let you know that God blesses you. And I want to just say, you are special in every way. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
One of my most favorite speeches. Now, just to close off, we are at a point amidst the shadows cast by a system that seeks to define us. We are not just subjects of a regime, but we're individuals, each a bearer of light, hope, and an unwavering spirit. We, having these discussions together, is a testament to a truth that resonates in each and every one of our hearts. We yearn for a future shaped by our own hands, not dictated by an ideology that doesn't echo our deepest convictions. Our land is under the weight of a doctrine we did not choose. And it cries out for the dawn of tomorrow and the day after, where freedom, not conformity, guides our destinies. We, all of us, the people, stand united, not in the name of a party or a state, but in the name of something far greater, something more divine. We stand under the gaze of God not because he chooses to side, in these petty squabbles of humankind, but because we have chosen to be on his side, the side of liberty, dignity, and truth. Remember, God does not measure us by the flags we are forced to fly or the slogans we are compelled to chant. He sees us for who we are, individuals with dreams, hopes, and a longing for a life where our voices matter. As we, over the years, have been undergoing a quest for our nation to be one where freedom rings louder than doctrine, where choices are our own and our futures are unbound by chains of force, ideologies, and speech. We align ourselves with his eternal principles. Now, while the road that is past and the one to come is fraught with challenges, undeniably steep, undeniably treacherous and painful, within us burns a flame that no amount of oppression can extinguish. A flame of resilience, of courage, and an unyielding belief and faith. The best indeed is yet to come, not as a decree from on high, but as the rightful outcome of our unwavering commitment to break free from the shackles that we helped bind us. As long as your struggle is noble, for it is a struggle for the very essence of humanity. It's a struggle not against a people, but against an idea that seeks to diminish the individual in the name of the collective. We don't seek to survive, but to thrive, not to exist, but to live freely in harmony with our deepest truths. So we should all stand strong, because the road to freedom and clarity may be long and arduous, but it is a road paved with the hopes and dreams of every soul from the past and today yearning to breathe free and think free. In aligning ourselves with God's will, his will of freedom, right? Free will, justice, and the inherent dignity of every individual, we unlock a future of unlimited possibilities. The best is yet to come, and it beckons us with open arms. Remember that. God bless.